The LA Kings are hit with a potential serious injury as they head to Seattle looking to snap a 3-game losing skid. And it's a Kings fan feedback Friday on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for almost 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years. And of course, a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, we have some breaking news involving LA Kings number 2 goalie, Phoenix Copley, the veteran netminder, had to be helped off the ice at practice today. Obviously, I'm no doctor, but I will play one on the podcast. No official word, but anytime a player needs to be helped off the ice, it means they're not putting weight on whatever the issue is, an ankle, a knee, something along those lines. I'm sure they'll term it a lower body injury, but that is not a good first indication as far as what happened to Phoenix Copley in practice earlier today. Veteran netminder David Rittich has been recalled from Ontario in the AHL to serve as the backup to number 1 goalie Cam Talbot. For those of you that might not be familiar with Rittich, he's 31 years old, out of the Czech Republic, veteran of 172 NHL games, mostly played with the Calgary Flames, but he also has seen time in net in his past with the Maple Leafs, Predators, and most recently the Winnipeg Jets, where he played 21 games as a backup last season. This season in Ontario, he was sharing the net with first-time pro Eric Portillo. 16 games with the Reign. David Rittich had a record of 7-6, a 2.67 goals against average, and a .901 save percentage. Now, some might wonder, why would Rittich get the call over Portillo, who has superior numbers? Portillo 7-1 in Ontario, 1.96 goals against average, and a .931 save percentage. Well, obviously, Rittich has the NHL experience. He's played the role of a number 2 goalie at the NHL level before. Portillo is still in his first year as a pro. They want him to continue to develop before they kind of throw him in the fire. He'll get some more time now, it appears, as the number 1 goalie in Ontario. So a greater role for him. They'll see how he handles that and then maybe make a decision in the near future. All of this, of course, is contingent on what exactly the injury to Phoenix Copley is and how long he's going to be out of action. But with goaltenders, you want to be sure that they're able and ready to handle the pressures of the NHL. Obviously, the AHL is a good development league, but it's a big step from the AHL to the NHL. So I think the Kings, for the moment, more comfortable with the veteran player who's been there and done that, is not going to be overwhelmed or wowed by the situation that he's in. He's been an NHL goaltender, so that's the reason why they've decided to go with David Rittich for now, and we'll see what happens in the future. But again, it all depends on exactly how long Phoenix Copley is going to be out, what Eric Portillo now does, being the number 1 in the AHL, and what David Rittich does as the number 2 with the LA Kings. If you look at the schedule for the Kings coming up, they do have back-to-back games in consecutive weeks, typically in the NHL, as I'm sure you know. When you play back-to-back games, typically you go with your number 1 goalie and your number 2 goalie. You usually don't have the number 1 guy going back-to-back games. That could change in this situation, but we'll see. But the Kings coming up on Tuesday in LA will be taking on the San Jose Sharks. Actually, that game's in San Jose, excuse me. So next Tuesday, Kings are in San Jose to face the Sharks. And then the very next night on Wednesday, they are home to take on the Seattle Kraken. So back-to-back games next week, and the following week, the Kings have back-to-back games as well. On Wednesday, they will host the Sharks, and then on Thursday, head to Las Vegas to take on the Golden Knights. So if Phoenix Copley is in fact unavailable, which, again, just judging by being helped off the ice, that's not a good sign. Looks like he'll likely be out for a while. And again, that's not official. But we'll see what they decide to do and how they handle that situation with the back-to-back games coming up. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they were just being precautionary. Hopefully it was just some sort of a tweak or a twinge, and it was maybe it scared him and he didn't want to put weight on it. Hopefully for good news by this time on Monday's show, I'm sure we'll have some sort of an update. But again, Phoenix Copley helped off the ice at practice this morning, and David Rittich has in fact been called up to be the number 2 goalie for the foreseeable future for the LA Kings. As for the Kings, they did get on a plane today and head to Seattle for their game against the Kraken on Saturday, looking to snap a 3-game losing skid. In addition to the injury to Copley, the Kings have some other things going on with their lineup right now that are a bit up in the air. We know defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov has officially been placed on injured reserve today. So that means he's out at least a week, and they had him listed as week to week. So that's not a big surprise. Matter of fact, that was expected. So now that he is officially on IR, they can have a player replace him on the roster, and that will be defenseman Tobias Bjornfoot. Bjornfoot just came off a conditioning stint in Ontario with the Reign. This was after he suffered an injury while playing in the AHL. So it looks like he's ready to go. Will it be Bjornfoot against the Kraken, or will it be Jacob Moverar, who took Gavrikov's spot in the game against Winnipeg on Wednesday? Remains to be seen. Also, we've got Kings forward Arthur Kaliev battling some flu-like symptoms. I did not see a report if he went on the trip to Seattle or not, but we'll have to wait and see if it will be him back in the Kings lineup for the game on Saturday against Seattle, or will Jarrett Anderson-Dolan be back in the lineup as he was against Winnipeg on Wednesday. So a couple of issues going on with the Kings lineup right now, as again, they are riding this season high 3-game losing streak. As for the Kraken, they have won their last 2 games. This was following an 8-game losing skid, but they recently beat the Panthers and the Blackhawks. As for LA, 16-6-4 on the season for 36 points. They are in 3rd place in the Pacific Division. For Seattle, 10-14-7 for 27 points. They are in 6th place in the division. And we mentioned this on Thursday's show. This starts a stretch of several games for the LA Kings against Pacific Division opponents. The Kraken have been hit a bit by the injury bug this season. They're without forwards Jaden Schwartz and Andrei Burakovsky, both on injured reserve, as is their number 1 goalie, Philip Grubauer. So they've had to turn to their backup goalie, Joey Decord, for the last few games. His last 4 games, he has a record of 2-2. As for who's standing out for the Kraken this season, Jared McCann, a defenseman, not Jared McCann, Vince Dunn, a defenseman, along with forward Oliver Bjorkstrand, are their 2 leading scorers, each of them 24 points. Jared McCann, the forward, is their leading goal scorer with 14 goals. Now, last season, the Kraken had a Cinderella run in their 2nd year of existence, pushed the Colorado Avalanche to a 7-game series in the 2nd round of the playoffs, or was it the 1st round of the playoffs? Either way, a really unexpected season for the Kraken last year. This year, they've kind of come back down to earth a bit and are struggling so far. If you look at the Kraken's success last year, kind of like the Kings this year, they had a lot of different guys contribute offensively. So they were very deep. That's kind of dried up this year. And so the Kraken not having the season that they had a year ago. On paper, the Kings look to be the better team all the way around. Hopefully that will translate into a much-needed win for the Kings coming up Saturday night in Seattle. It is a Feedback Friday. We've got your emails to get to. We'll try and see if we can squeeze in some YouTube comments as well, but we do have a lot of emails to get to, which is a great thing. We'll do that here next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. I don't, because I use Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I have personally used Gametime to buy tickets to NHL and NFL games this year, and I'm a very satisfied customer. The app is very easy to use and navigate. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guaranteed. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. And I love how you can see the seats on the app from when you're going to buy it, so you know exactly the view you're going to get when you arrive. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All-in pricing shows you the total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps on the app. Just download that Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And you know that this show gives you a lot of in-depth analysis and sometimes some hot takes. Well, let me give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with my favorite. They're proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big time bucks. Up next, they've got an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loan with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out their lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. These guys you're going to lower your monthly payments and get you on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you. Or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's Logix, Logix, banking.com/car. We got a lot of emails to get to, which is always exciting. Thank you to everyone who took the time to send an email. And the Kings will be in Seattle on Saturday. Let us start with an email from Seattle. This is Dave in Seattle. He says, I watch and listen almost every day to your podcast. Usually if I miss an episode, I catch up the next day or two. I guess that still kind of makes me an everydayer. Yes, I will say you are an everydayer. Whether you watch every day or every other day, you're still an everydayer. He says it's really tough to see former Kings tearing it up, but it is just a bump in the road. I feel like Tom McClellan usually addresses issues with the team right away, and they usually seem to learn from it. I look forward to Saturday night. I will be at the game in Seattle, and I fully expect the Kings to have a bounce-back big game. As far as Pierre-Luc Dubois goes, he's starting to get the same negativity from fans that Byfield got last season. My general feeling is that everything's going to be okay. Kings will right the ship, and PLD will get more comfortable with his role and tear it up in the playoffs. Ironically, Byfield is the one player you could potentially put with Dubois right now to get him going. I know that won't happen, but I would love to see it, particularly in games against Winnipeg when the team was struggling. Why not try some new line combinations and try to spark the team? Sometimes I feel like Todd lacks creativity in that area. Anyway, keep up the great work. Go, Kings, go. Thanks for the email, Dave, and hope you have a great time at the Kings-Kraken game on Saturday. I believe the Royal Army is taking a big group up for that game. So there should actually be a very decent contingent of Kings fans in the arena for that game. As for being patient with Pierre-Luc Dubois, I agree to this point. I think, though, at this point, he has had enough time, as I've mentioned, to get acclimated to his new team and his new teammates in a new system. So I think it's time for him to start to take a step forward. Hopefully things will work out, as you say, and I'm still optimistic they will. But I do understand the frustration, and I do think it is time to see a bit more from him at this point. As far as the lineup and tweaks, I think things have gone so well for the Kings. There's really no reason to kind of tweak things other than what's going on with Pierre-Luc Dubois. But he hasn't been just incredible. He hasn't been totally awful, but he hasn't lived up to expectations. But with the injuries now, I think we could certainly see some tweaking. And I do think Todd McClellan making the move to move Kevin Fiala off of the Dubois line and put him with the Deneau line, I think that's worked out relatively well. So, we'll see if we see some more tweaks going forward. This next email is from Gary. He is in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he says, checking in again. As is customary, I have attached a photo with my email, my ticket stubs from opening night 1999 at Staples Center. And obviously you can't see this. I looked at the attachment there on the email. And Gary, is that Stefan Fissé on the tickets there? Former Kings goaltender? Looked like it. Not sure about that. But he said, by the way, I have an extensive ticket stub collection from all, like 99% of the sporting events I went to in my life. I've kept the ticket stubs. Unfortunately, that tradition or that hobby has gone away because of electronic tickets now. It's really kind of a bummer. Although I have this shoebox full of all these ticket stubs. They're great memories. I wish I knew something creative to do with them, like make some sort of collage or something like that. But anyway, to get back to Gary's email. He says, I wanted to touch on the Kings' dominance over the Montreal Canadiens this season. I became a Kings fan in 1974, and that was also the year the NHL expanded with the Washington Capitals and Kansas City Scouts. Unfortunately, the Kings were put into the same division, the Norris, as the Canadiens. This was the era of the Flying Frenchman Guy Lafleur, Steve Shutt, Yvon Courrier, Larry Robinson, Serge Savard, Ken Dryden, among others. The Kings rarely beat the Canadiens, managed to tie now and then, and this was before overtime. Remember watching many of the games on KCAL or on TV. Almost always the Kings would lose. He says, in case you're not aware, On TV was a subscription TV service in the late 70s, early 80s that carried Kings, Lakers, Dodgers home games. Stu Nahan did the play-by-play for the Kings. I remember Stu Nahan. Was it Channel 5? He says, 57-year-old Gary took extreme satisfaction in watching the Kings dominate the Canadiens in 2 shutouts this season that 11-year-old Gary would have only dreamed about. Another note, I have said in previous emails that I had tickets to the Spokane Chiefs Prince George Cougars game for December 2nd to see Kings prospect Cohen Zemer. Unfortunately, Zemer was involved in a fight November 27th and fell awkwardly, breaking his ankle and is out indefinitely. That's not good. Lastly, I have tickets for the Kings Kraken game at Climate Pledge Arena for December 16th. I'm in the lower bowl in the corner and will have my Forum Blue Marcel Dion jersey on if you are watching the game. Thank you for all you do. Proud every dayer, and go Kings go. Gary, we will definitely be keeping an eye out for you in the corner wearing your Forum Blue and Gold jersey. So again, hope you see a Kings win as well in your trip to Seattle. Our next email comes from Everyday RJ. He's in Long Beach. He says, a week of disappointment with the losses since your last feedback show. Hopefully this will put an end to the premature best Kings team of all time talk. I'm not saying they're not. I just think it's impossible to evaluate that claim at this point in time. The fact is, teams in any sport get complacent when they win all the time. The Kings are no different. A bad habit of inconsistent effort were already rearing its ugly head long before the Kings played on Long Island. Things I liked this week, despite all the losing: Kopitar's consistency and Dano is a warrior. Things I don't feel better about include Copley giving up some soft ones, Doobie still not finding his niche. The injury news really sucked this week. Hope to see Gabby and Turcotte come back healthy and productive. Thanks for all the great interviews with Carlin. She's a pro like the rest of the broadcast team. Thank you for that, RJ. I have not heard any talk, honestly, about this Kings team being the best team of all time. Last season, obviously, the Kings had the second most points and wins in franchise history, 104 points and 47 wins. This season, the Kings are on pace for 113 points and 50 wins. So I guess I could get the talk early on, but I would not feel comfortable talking about any kind of best all-time Kings team until much later in the season. And certainly, with 2 teams that have won the Stanley Cup, hard to imagine that anything that you do in the regular season would kind of vault them ahead of those teams. But people look at that kind of thing in different ways. The next email comes from Scott in Simi Valley. He says, it was great to see Carlin Baith on your show. Years ago when she replaced Alex Curry on the Kings broadcast, I was initially disappointed as I was a fan of Curry, but now I can't imagine Carlin not being there. She is the very best, and I love watching her. It was interesting hearing insights on the Kings from her unique perspective. Also, I am really sick over Alex Turcotte's latest brutalization injury. What is wrong with the AHL? How can they not let potential career-ending headshots go unpunished like this? And why weren't Turcotte's teammates pissed off and getting in Bakersfield's face? I don't know about Turcotte's history and the damage to a hockey player's health and playing career from repeated concussions, or do they not know about his history? And he said, I was very disappointed in their reaction or lack thereof, and I'll bet Turcotte was too. I'm not a doctor, and I won't try to explain why some guys take headshots and others can't, but Turk's a talented player who deserves to play. He has had the absolute worst luck with head impact injuries. I guess if a league doesn't care enough to protect its players, that says it all about this particular league. Apparently, the AHL would rather have headshots be part of their makeup than the talented players whose careers are cut short by neglecting officiating or an asinine let the boys play stance, which ensures that some at least won't be in good enough health to do just that. If there's any justice in the world of hockey, Alex Turcotte will at least get a shot to shine in the NHL. But with the insanity like these rules at the rinks, I don't think many of us will be surprised if he never does. I will have to admit, Scott, I don't know if there was any punishment handed down to the player who did elbow Alex Turcotte in the head, which was a penalized play that caused an injury. So you would think it would have that kind of potential, but I don't know. Judging by your comments, apparently that was not the case. As for his teammates sticking up for him, you have to assume that they just didn't see the hit. If they did and they didn't respond, obviously that is very disappointing. When we take it for granted when we watch on TV or we watch on video that everybody sees what we see, but sometimes that's not the case. I'd like to give those guys the benefit of the doubt on that one. As for Alex Turcotte, I mean, everybody hopes that he can be healthy as soon as possible, get back on the ice. He was having a great season. I have no doubt he was going to get a call up this year with the Kings, but obviously that is all completely up in the air at this point, and it absolutely sucks, especially for Alex Turcotte. We have some more emails, and I'm not sure if we can squeeze in some YouTube comments, but we'll try and do it next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action than right now. And as much as we love betting on the NHL, the NFL is there too. As for the Kings, they've got a game coming up against Seattle. Certainly you could place a bet on whether you think they're going to bounce back and snap that losing streak. Do you think the over-under 6.5, will they score? Will the total be more or less than that? There's a wide range of betting options, including point spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on the NHL and the NFL this season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. The LA Kings face the Seattle Kraken at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Let's get back to your emails. This one comes from Jace in Australia. Longtime listener, first-time emailer. Great to hear from you, Jace. He says, I am a Southern California native, longtime LA Kings fan who has been living in Australia's capital of Canberra for over 10 years. I downloaded your podcast, listen to it every day on the Pocket Cast app. Can you please explain what it means for a player with a 1-year, 2-way contract like Mikhail Maltsev and to be reassigned or loaned to a team that is not in the NHL or AHL like Spartak Moscow? I found it a bit surprising because it seemed like he was one of the key players for the Reign, playing in all 21 games. I read about this on today's Reign preview. This was from December the 8th. He says, there just wasn't that much information or background about it, so I'd be interested to know if you have anything to say about it or knew more details. Thanks, mate. Love your work. Go Kings, go. Well, great to hear from you, Jace. I always love getting emails from interesting places like Australia. So we didn't mention this on the show, but recently the Ontario Reign forward Mikhail Maltsev, apparently he was not happy with his prospects of being an NHL player with the Kings. And so I guess he was asked to be allowed to return home to Russia to play, which is what he has done. He's now back in the KHL. The Kings granted his request, but they still retain his rights. So should he want to return to North America and play potentially in the NHL, then the Kings still have him as their property, for lack of a better word. As for a 2-way contract, what that means is a player gets paid a certain amount in the AHL and a certain amount in the NHL. So, for example, the contract that they would have negotiated with Maltsev could have been something like he gets $700,000 in the AHL and $1 million if he gets to the NHL. So that's what a 2-way contract is. It's just a different salary for whichever league you're paying in. And other players, they just get straight whatever, whether they're playing in the AHL or the NHL. I think as far as Maltsev, it was a little bit surprising that he would be upset that he didn't feel he had a chance to crack the Kings lineup, but I would have thought he would have known that kind of going in. The Kings lineup was pretty much set, especially the forwards. He was 6th on the Reign in points with 14, was having a decent year, but apparently wasn't happy. And there were guys certainly in front of him in line to get called up to the Kings. Samuel Flagemo definitely was in front of him. And before the injury, Alex Turcotte as well. So we'll see if Mikhail Maltsev ever does return to North America. This comes from Edwin, and he says, on our road winning. Edwin, I know you've mentioned where you're from before, but I can't remember, and you didn't include it in this email. So I'm going to say it's Edwin in Encino. On the road winning streak was very impressive, even though I did not expect us to lose to the Islanders. I did sadly guarantee a loss at MSG. Definitely if Jonathan Quick was playing. Destiny, I believe, sets things right. Definitely when a person is wronged. In this case, Jonathan Quick was wronged by Kings management. How can you trade away a goalie who holds the most of all the franchise records and wins, shutouts, etc.? Won 2 cups. One of them, he was the playoff MVP. Gave a lot to the franchise before Quick. They had never won a cup. Also, it's because of Jonathan Quick I became a Kings fan, one of many reasons. The Kings traded him in a blindsided way, and Destiny remembers that because respect-wise, it was wrong. This season, he has won his revenge game against us, and he will beat us again in LA on the ice where he won 2 cups. If we face the Rangers in the cup final, he will sadly win another cup, likely on the same ice he won the 2 before. I'd rather have the old Jonathan Quick than our current goalies of Cam Talbot or Phoenix Copley, since Quick has an aura of having big games when it matters the most, and the current goalies have not. Also, our current goalies cannot take over games because their talent is based on good team play in front of them. However, in the playoffs, you need a goalie that can take over a game and win some games too. And that was from Edwin, who is clearly a big Jonathan Quick fan and did not like the way that went down. So I get that. And look, Quick has played amazing. I don't know about the whole Destiny thing or not, but I'll say this. I'll be surprised if he is the goaltender when the Rangers make the playoffs. I think it'll be Igor Shesterkin. I'll be shocked, frankly, if Jonathan Quick can keep up the pace that he's had so far all season. But that being said, he has surprised me to this point, so maybe he can do it a little bit more. So we'll see. We'll see what Jonathan Quick does the rest of the season. This comes from John Miriam in Whittier. He says, just started listening to your podcast and enjoyed immensely. I'm one of the old school Kings fans you mentioned on Thursday's show. I've been following the Kings since 1968. Gene Carr was a highly touted draft pick in 1971, being selected 4th overall in the first round by the St. Louis Blues. He was a very flashy skater, but not a great finisher. Sadly, his career stats substantiate that he was never able to fulfill his potential, but he certainly was fun to watch. Keep up the good work. And Dave Onisick in Long Beach. And Dave, thank you for putting your name phonetically for me. That was a great help. Heard the news about Gene Carr's passing. I wanted to say a few words. Obviously, he played years before most of the Kings fans, but he was a very popular player after his trade from the Rangers. His skating was incredible and a joy to watch. Although he only had 38 goals in a Kings uniform, he possibly had another 30 shots hit off the post or the crossbar that didn't go in the net. He was also a part of the off-Broadway line with Mike Murphy and Tommy Williams. A lot of fun watching those 3 play. Eddie, keep up the great work. I'm an everydayer and proud of it. And thank you to Dave and to John for chiming in on Gene Carr, who passed away the other day. I had mentioned didn't get to see him play. It was before my time, but if any of our old school fans wanted to make a comment on him, that would be great. And thank you guys for that. So it sounds like maybe he was a kind of, and I'm thinking some players who played on the Kings in recent years who were really flashy, had a lot of speed, but not really the all-around game. So I was thinking maybe Austin Wagner, maybe Carl Hagelin, and maybe Andreas Athanasiou. Fast guys, fun guys to watch, but maybe their all-around game didn't live up to what their speed was. So anyway, a couple of thoughts on that. Unfortunately, not going to have time to get to any YouTube comments, you guys. I will make sure, though, I go on there, like those comments, and also give you some feedback there personally as well. Thank you to everyone who took the time to email. If you want to send an email at any time, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And of course, always post your comments on the YouTube episodes as well. If you want to stay interactive with the show, X, Twitter, Instagram, we are at Locked On LA Kings. And for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch every day, Monday, of course, we'll have a recap of the game in Seattle and hopefully a Kings win. And we'll give you any injury updates that we have from over the weekend as well. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for listening and watching all week long. Look forward to having another week's amount of shows coming up next week. Want to wish you a great weekend, and we will talk to you again on Monday. This is Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, we say and close out the show by saying, Go Kings, go.